Hello, welcome to Creating Portland. I'm your host, Pearson Kunz, and on this podcast, I'll be interviewing progressive creators who are using their art to shape the culture of our city and beyond. I hope you enjoy this episode of Creating Portland. Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Creating Portland. We have an incredible guest here today, and multimedia resourcing and events is their fame, but loving people, art, and nonsense of all varieties is their game. We have Katya here today, and Katya's been working in Portland for a little under 3 years, give or take a pandemic, and loves helping to connect the various communities here in Portland to the greater nightlife and queer community, which I'm so excited to get into. Katya, welcome to the podcast.
Hi, thanks for having me.
We are so excited to have you here, and we'll jump right in with the big question of the pod, which is, how are you, Katya, creating Portland with your art?
Well, it's that to be like a question like that, I'm like, LOL. I totally appreciate like everyone. But it just seems so weird to put it like in that context. I don't consider myself like creating Portland. I'm very much a child of Portland in terms of like I moved here 5 years ago, so a lot of the groundwork has been laid for me in terms of like the weirdness, the really strong but small queer community, and people who are just willing to like I feel like put themselves out there a lot. Like a lot of people. Yes. Like, I do a lot of theme parties, and people who are not getting paid at all show up in, like, really ornate looks that are fantastic, and people, I think even, like, the way I know your producer is, like, just supporting other people in their ventures just feels really natural here. I am a firm believer in rising tides raise all ships, and so I think we just can benefit from that sort of mindset. So I'm creating in Portland, but I feel like I'm much... my job is like uplifting the many creators of Portland.
Yes, absolutely. Well, I mean, I feel very similarly. I'm hoping we're doing that with these conversations too, and I think that is so important to just be elevating different voices. And then what do you bring specifically to Portland? What are you working on in the city?
I do a lot of work with events, which obviously is farther and fewer between, because I'm definitely in the camp of I want to wait till the full... like we can have the full effect back. I don't think we're really enjoying going out right now. At least I'm not. I don't drink. I usually was there for like the nonsense and the fun and the goofiness. And you really, if you go to a bar, you have to stay with your pod, which of course is important. And the drag shows are like no non-contact. So which is keeping everyone safe. And I'm so appreciative of people willing to do that. But for me, that loses all the fun. So for now, a lot of things are on hold, and we're just working more on the like media aspect, and also starting a fitness company and just working on more sustainable community organization.
Oh, exciting. Okay, so then, let's talk then like pre-pandemic, in the grand before times. What was your life looking like? What was your artistic creation?
I do. I feel like a lot of my stuff was just because I didn't mean to start playing events. I just worked at Halsey, and I was their events coordinator. Very like show up, just help, like leave, not anything in the production role, not really any sort of creative input, just sort of just helping move the wheels there. And when event dropped out for Pride in 2018, they asked me if I wanted to step in, and so I did. And it kind of like is all of a sudden just like I am a firm believer in saying yes to most things. I think I'm slowly learning the no too, but at first it felt really important to say yes to as many things as I could. So I did brunches, I did drag shows, I even had straight dance parties, I had charity events, trivias, bingos, after hours parties, anything that congregated gays and queers and Portlanders I was up for. And I did a lot of like like hot bluing, so I'd like make goofy costumes too. It's like more of my like hobby tunity art.
And so are you a performer as well as an organizer?
I've only
performed.
I performed one time, like as like a way to like know what I'm asking of people.
Yes, that's important.
Yeah, I mean, it definitely made me. I was like, well, I did like it, did love it. It's just like it takes a lot of energy, and like the way I'm good at putting myself out there is not necessarily in that like really raw and creative way that really is like leaves it, you're hoping for the best, hoping that people love you, tip you dollars. So yeah, nothing, no performance. I host a lot of things. Like if I live, like I'll go and like make a look or turn a look somewhere and like help organize.
Yes. Well, and that's just as creative, I think, the producing and the organizing and the pulling together of an event. And so what does that process look like for you?
It's we try, my assistant and I try to make like a list, so like a checklist for events, so we could like have something to sort of, everything was sort of, I mean, a really simplistic way is like you come with the concept, you book the people, you create the graphics and the event page, and then whatever else sort of happens is very like either putting out fires or starting fires depending on the drag queen. Like people are, it's sort of more responsive after that point, but obviously a lot of planning goes into it. You just hope that it all goes according to that plan.
Oh, well, that sounds, I mean, I want to go to one of your events now. That sounds like you got quite the system going on. So I'm curious, what brought you to Portland and what keeps you here, I guess, especially with the crisis going on? Like,
I feel, yeah.
What is it about Portland?
It's funny because I always say, like, I don't think gays really ever move. They, like, just, like, get a boyfriend somewhere else and then they move where that boyfriend is. And that is fully I had a boyfriend who worked for Intel. I lived in Minnesota for 4 years prior to that. And I just couldn't do the cold anymore, which is, the cold here is not cold compared to there at all, and like it's so fleeting. Everyone dying this weekend I was like, oh, it was like,
yes, we're recording this right after the snowstorm that just shook our city.
Yeah,
but yeah, I can.
To be fair, I totally get it. I'm not like one of those like people who are like, why can't everyone drive? Like our city's not built for it. But it is just interesting watching. Like I fully just did all of my regular things for those like 3 days because I was just like, well, I just walk around. I guess I don't know. It wasn't that cold,
right?
But I really hate the cold. Actually, honestly, and it is getting too cold for me here. I don't see myself spending many more winters here. But I really enjoy the people that live here in such a way that anywhere else. Every time I go somewhere else, I'm like, it's fun, it's cute, but I'm really ready to get back to Portland because people here have such an open mind and really few judgments. And if you can find your community here, it's pretty strong.
Yes, well, that kind of gets into our second part of the podcast, which is what do you like about the Portland art scene, and then what do you think we could improve on? What are the areas that are maybe not working as well?
I think this has been a year of reckoning in many ways. I can appreciate the fact that I don't have a bar or venues, so it's like I had a lot less at stake. I had a lot less to tangibly lose, which was good, I think, for me at least personally, because then I can rebrand and regroup and I can throw a party anywhere. But I am sad to see a lot of venues and spaces go, but I do think that's going to give us an opportunity to sort of shake out some of those bad habits. And I mean, the fact of the matter is most of the people who run bars and venues and generally own property are like old white men. And so much of my job was trying to like navigate that, hey, we need to create spaces and be like able to go, like, because a lot of gay bars here didn't really throw events. They're very like no programming. We just have drink specials. So we really have to look elsewhere to throw parties, and that makes it a bit, you're like you're saying, so you're doing this balancing act of trying to get people to respect queer art and also accept. I mean, I just remember like some of the owners of Holocene. I don't know if you know Patrick Buckmaster, but they're a very individual kind of person who wears exactly what they want to wear all the time, says all the things that they want to say all the time. It's what makes them them. But I was always having to do like some sort of like liaison role of trying to calm them down, and also they're not happy. I don't know. So that's sort of like the things that I like to see. I love the people that are here are so themselves, but there's an upper echelon of people who run things that are not like that at all. So it's just a weird trying to find that line.
Yeah, that is interesting to sort of talk about the gatekeeping even within a community that is not as mainstream or not. I don't want to say underground because we're not really underground as queer people here in Portland, but like it's interesting that there's still people withholding space and venues and things like that in our city as well.
So yeah, to answer your second question, I think that is what I would love to see changed. And I think I mean, even I've gotten 2 offers to open a gay bar here. I don't know if I'm gonna do. I don't have a strong interest in doing anything like this year. Like maybe something in the future. It just seems like still kind of precarious. But I do think that whoever takes over new gay bars, because a couple of gay bars have closed down and a ton of just regular venues and clubs have closed down. Because people are going to get money from the government. There's going to be some sort of aid eventually, hopefully. And that's going to be exciting because I think it's going to be a lot of like grants and loans to people who don't normally have opportunities. It's like a New Deal situation now.
Mm-hmm. And what in an ideal world, what would that look like? What would this new sort of these incoming queer spaces look like?
I think everyone who's ever, I guess I don't know how long CJ's lived here, but like there used to be a Vaseline Alley, and that was like 7 or 8 gay bars that were like right where Scandals is now. And actually it's funny, Scandals wasn't in that bar, it was in a different part in the same neighborhood. But there was like, I think there was like 10 gay bars at one time. This is like the 90s and early 2000s. And then Grindr came out. And so, and not just Grindr, but like dating apps in general. And the nightlife and bar scenes across the country, I sort of had thought it was like maybe just because Portland was chill, but even when I travel and talk to other people, they're like, things are different now. People don't really look to bars as much as places to congregate. And now I guess like even less. We're more technologically separated. So I think in that, honestly, that is the number one problem that I plan on addressing, which is just trying to find a way to have like engaging and I really hope that we can like, we're at a technological adolescence and like we've realized that, I mean, I'm a big tech ethicist kind of person. We've realized that like technology, social media has not exactly been the tool that we'd hoped it to be. And it's created a lot of, lack of attention spans and political polarization and so many other things. And the bars is just one of the many effects. But I'm hoping that we just start taking and thinking about ways that we can like functionally help at least alleviate the problem, or maybe even find new technologies that are more ethical and empathic.
Yes, and what have you been like in terms of addressing this? What does that look like for you? Is that in your programming you're going to create something more engaging, or
so I think like
how do we combat that?
Yeah, so we're definitely still. My fame events are more my skill set. I wish it just didn't rhyme with game.
Right.
Events are more my skill set. I really enjoy like gathering people and that moment too, but I'm much more of a one-on-one person. So I have a podcast starting on Wednesday called From the Horse's Mouth, and I've been interviewing queer people from all over the country, and it's been awesome because the nice thing about this pandemic is that it's so much more easy to be like, do you want to virtually meet? And also you'll get you'll get more engagement than you would have gotten before. Like when I saw people go live before, I was like, oh, who cares? But now it's like that's all there is. So you can So I'm much more apt to check out people. So but to answer your question fully, I just plan on doing a whole wider like we have yoga, book club ideas, providing just activities that aren't centered around excessive drinking or partying or drug use, which I'm all for. I'm very like drug positive, party positive. I just think everything in life just needs balance. So I'm hoping that if we do stuff like that, maybe have a couple parties where there's no phones allowed. And also I like sneakily talk about tech ethics, as you can tell, in every conversation I have.
Yes.
I'm just like, if you haven't watched The Social Dilemma, and the people who created it have this podcast called they created the documentary was a little sensationalist. I definitely had like a knee-jerk reaction to it, but there's a much better podcast that has called Your Undivided Attention that has a more well-rounded approach of like has like the problems, they discuss them, but they have a lot more viable solutions discussed too.
Okay, well this is really interesting looking at this from a tech avenue, I guess, and I'm curious, like what other effects have you noticed, not only just on queer nightlife, but on art in general, drag art and queer art?
I mean, I just interviewed Colty, and we were talking about how fast fashion, because like if you really want to go like way back, arguably fashion and art is like what created capitalism. Like before the 1700s, like people you didn't buy things and then just to buy them. Like you bought them because like you couldn't make it yourself.
You needed them.
And also you would wear clothes until they just couldn't be worn. There was no like in and out of fashion. But like once the French courts found a way to like you could like make people have status or not have status by purchasing things, and it was sort of like this weird way of like creating like him dominating the courts because he would decide what was like in fashion. So like if you look and then that's honestly like and think of all that we throw so much away. I'm a huge like I try to only shop at Goodwill if I can help it because it's like even myself I'm doing a purge right now. I'm like I have so much clothes that I don't need. But so it's like and I also when it relates to technology, I also feel like art has become fast fashion too. People are really focused on like putting out something that like no one's seen before. You want to make sure that, and if if someone takes a picture of you in that look, well then,
you can never wear it.
You never wear it again.
Yeah.
And I feel like that kind of applies to a lot of things. Like a lot of people we're just trying to get engagement, likes, et cetera, et cetera. So.
And have you noticed like shifts specifically from queens in the drag scene as technology becomes more?
Well, I think it's
the venue.
Yeah. When I think and it's like it's like who knows what came first, the chicken or the egg? Because Drag Race really did popularize both drag and queer culture, and Black women culture too, and trans cultures. But it made that kind of I think like sort of created like an information gap because it would give you like the tip of the iceberg of like what it's all about. And then people ran wild with it because of social media. But really, it's only 14 queens per season, which is like, there's just so many. But I will say, to that similar point, I think a lot of queens now, you can just go online and find makeup tutorials. You can find how to make hip bags. So it's a lot more accessible. So you're seeing a lot more good drag because more people are, you're not just, a lot of times, drag queens back in like the 60s, 70s, and 80s were just like old, rich white guys. Which is sort of funny to think, but it was like, yeah. But they were,
they could afford to do that.
Yeah, the courts, the rose court system is actually one of the oldest institutions in Portland.
Oh, okay. Yeah. I love the historical context you're bringing to all this and just like putting it into perspective too, because it feels like this year has been so focused on how crazy this year has been. But when we tie it to everything else, it kind of makes sense that we've inevitably reached this point with technology.
Yeah, and we've been in. People used to think radio is going to be the end of the world because I mean, when FDR did like fireside chats, like people were like, he's in our living room, like. And then television, and before that, even like in France, there still are laws about printed posters because people thought printed posters were going to be like the death of information. So it's not often a tool, and of course that's like a slippery way of thinking, but often a tool is not inherently bad. Like I'm not saying guns don't kill people, guns still kill people, but a lot of times the tool and the object is really just what we decide how it's handled. And like Twitter has already taken they've made a lot of moves in the last year because they realized that they were becoming a problem. They were like, well, people are using our platform in some countries to commit genocide, like in the Philippines or Myanmar, and so now people are being conscious about it. Actually, it's what's crazy is we think social media is bad here in America. We're actually probably one of the more aware countries. When in a lot of places, people use like offshoots of like WhatsApp is owned by Facebook. They own like less I would say curated, but less like with people like policing what like is on there. So I think like once we see more technological
and regulating it,
and the portion that sort of relates to me at least is mostly like the addictive properties of it. I had to take like a 4-month break because I was addicted. and I was like, why am I depressed for the last 2 years? Which is about how long I've been doing events. And it really was. I had muscle memory in my fingers, and attachment to likes and shares and follows. And once I was sort of like able to like the social lemma was great because it just made me like be like, okay, this is something that you need to learn how to use as a tool, not a crutch. And I think that for events and stuff, though, it'll be cool to see people step away from that.
Yeah, it is fascinating. And I love that you call it a tool, and I think about, especially what you were saying about Drag Race popularizing queer culture as a whole idea for the mainstream. And it's like this has legitimized in kind of a mainstream way all of this queer art. And I'm curious, like, what are some of the positives you're seeing in terms of exposure and in terms of like who's coming to your events?
Yeah. I think like even just like I have been in boardrooms with people dress like this. Like I used to work at I had some corporate gigs, and I was, and I don't know if it was Portland or if the times would be a change in, but it did feel like there's a bit more acceptance and tolerance around where I do hope to get to a place where it doesn't matter how someone presents themselves to you. You could just like treat them. I mean, who knows when that will be? But I do think we're getting in a place where we're starting to appreciate individuality a lot more. And we just, once we open the Pandora's box of giving women the right to vote, all of a sudden we're like, oh, we have to treat everyone equally. And so now I think we're still in that process, and we're still making our way. But social media is. It is, and actually, I was just listening to an interesting podcast that's like, it is a tool of misinformation and dictatorship and all the negative things, but also because they are based on that, it's super fragile because, I mean, public perception can mobilize and change in a second.
Totally. Okay, well, I mean, that kind of starts to talk to our last point, which is just, what is your hope? What is your hope for Portland art? This sort of, you were just talking about presenting individuality and acceptance of however people arrive to the space, but what else do you hope for the future of Portland art?
I mean, I hope it keeps going. I think it will. I think I'm very I'm very pleased to see. I mean, here I am. You're interviewing me, and I'm interviewing people, and I see other people, and the people I'm talking to all seem to be up to something. 2020 was nothing if not an opportunity. Most of us have been working since at least I've been working since I was 14, so I really had never taken a break. And so I think that is, and a lot of queens I know who kind of were hot messes before kind of got their shit together. I know a lot of people, drag queens and everyone, just were like, okay, I have to because everything is crashing down. So I think that'll be cool to see. I know a lot more artists who live lives of stability now versus lives of like sort of like frantically just kind of keeping up. And it'll be cool to see people kind of be able to give. I think there's a misconception that you have to be like a starving artist to make good art, and I really, really strongly don't recommend that if you're starving with your art, maybe your art isn't that good, or you need to just like support yourself and then work on your art, because I think like unless you're taking care of yourself, you won't make good art. So I think there's a lot of hope because people are feeling creative and doing things, and everyone's got a hobby these days. They're knitting and doing drag. Actually, a lot of people try drag for the first time. There's a lot of people put music out. I mean, you name it.
Yeah. It's been definitely a time of discovery and definitely a time of pausing and reflecting. And I mean, that's been a theme on this show, is just so many people are taking a moment like you did.
Yeah.
And saying,
I don't think I would have taken it. I mean, it's a terrible thing to say, but thank God bless this pandemic. But best pandemic ever. I hope it's our only one.
Yeah, I hope it's our only one, but truly it has been so important for this kind of reflection. And I totally feel the same way. It's like we could have just kept slashing and burning our whole way through life until we went into the ground. Like, there has to be a moment to stop and pause and check on what we want.
Absolutely.
Well, thank you so much for coming, Katya. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, I cannot wait till your events are back on and I can come to some of them. This sounds like
I think the fall. I mean, I don't know what your beliefs are, but I hope you're getting vaccinated. Hope anyone who's listening gets vaccinated.
So
yeah. I can respect the fact that people think it's a microchip, but also you're carrying a microchip around in your pocket already. It's your phone.
Oh. And that's the tea. That is it. Yes. I mean, I'm a teacher, so fortunately I will be fully vaxxed and ready to party with you as soon as it is possible.
No, I'm getting my second one next week. So, but the light is at the end of the tunnel. So, well, thank you both for thinking of me, and I hope whenever this airs, I can't wait to hear it.
Thank you so much for tuning into this episode of Creating Portland with me, Pearson Kunz. Don't forget to rate, review, and subscribe, and check us out on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter at CreatingPDX, or on our website, creatingpdx.com. This podcast was brought to you by Wolf and Thunder Productions and Golden Pride Productions. See you next time. Bye!